start off by giving a short summary of Harrison Bergeron, and it is a dystopian short story set in the future, and the government uses handicaps to enforce equality on strong, intelligent, and beautiful people. So if you are considered strong, they weighted you down with weights around your neck, ankles, and arms. If you were considered higher intelligence, they would have a radio attached to your ear to go off, to have random sounds going off to stop your higher thinking thoughts. And if you were beautiful, you had to put on a mask that was considered ugly. And so they stripped them of their individuality, and at the end of the story, a 14-year-old boy who was strong and intelligent and about 7 foot tall, they said, he tried to rebel against everyone on national television, which resulted in his death, and he got shot by the government. Our thesis statement was, in To Be or Not to Be, in Harrison Bergeron, Kurt Vonnegut Jr. uses the characters to show that an overreaching government creates chaos. So a controlling government, a government that tries to create a utopia, can cause dangerous retaliation from its civilians. So for the first claim, we said that he uses the characters' handicaps and Harrison Bergeron to take away their individuality. This is shown through a quote that says, "And George, while his intelligence was way above normal, had a metal handicap in his ear." Like I said, they had handicaps in their ears if they were considered high intelligence, to keep them from that higher order thinking. And then the second one was that after his son was killed on television, George and his wife weren't able to recall the event, only the emotions that were reigning with them afterwards, because of the control the government had over them and the brainwashing that the government induced on them. And our second claim is that the author takes away the value of the characters' lives by focusing on the quota more than the person, and that is referring in To Be or Not to Be. And the quotes are, "Nobody's really happy about taking a relative to the cat box." So when the main character, Welling, was interacting with the doctors, they weren't showing any empathy. They were just like going through the motions. The population is capped at 40 million, no more, no less, showing that they have that they value the population, and they have strict rules regarding the population. And the song that was sung during the story that just showed that they just lost the overall value of life, and it didn't seem that important to them. It was just another box to check off, innocent.
So now we're at our third claim. So our third claim is that Vonnegut uses the characters to show that people will retaliate against the handicap or a handicap to retain their individuality. So one of our first pieces of evidence for this is when Harrison, which is obviously the main character, when he tore the straps off his handicap like wet tissue paper. So that shows that obviously he's retaliating against his handicap to claim his individuality, but it also just shows that because the government went so hard on him, that his anger and his resentment built up to where he could just rip it off. So our second piece of evidence is that Harrison made the ballerinas and the musicians remove their handicaps and perform for the audience. So this also follows our same claim, because the ballerinas and the musicians, they're very talented, but due to their handicaps, they couldn't perform to their ways. They couldn't perform as they should. So they eventually ended up retaliating because simply they're fed up, they're tired of it, and the government is what caused them to do this. So when they started performing and playing right, obviously they did end up getting killed, which is unfortunate, but it just shows how eventually people will get fed up. So for our fourth claim is that Vonnegut uses the character's death to show that losing the value of life will lead to others' deaths. So in this one, we're referring to Be or Not to Be. So our first evidence for this is that Welling kills himself and the doctors to make room for his children without his father having to die. So obviously in this story, they have taken away the value of life because they're more worried about the population staying at a number of 40 million rather than who that population is. This also just shows that because when people are fed up with that, right, for however long people have been having to kill their kids because they haven't had someone else to give up their life, or they've had to give up their life just to bring a new life into this world. So he didn't want to see his grandfather die. So instead of that, he ended up retaliating and killing the doctors and himself, just to be able to let his children live. Now, our second piece of evidence is at the end when the painter calls a special number, which is To Be or Not to Be, to make an appointment to end his life. So that one is just also leading others to death, because in this situation, things have gotten so twisted and turned around that the value of the lives in the room almost ceases to exist, because actually for any of the humans, genuinely, because they're seen again as that 40 million population number. It doesn't matter who dies or what dies. Okay, well, you're dead, so now we can bring another person in. Now, for our conclusion, is that Kurt Vonnegut Jr. uses the characters in To Be or Not to Be and Harrison Bergeron to show that a controlling government creates chaos. Without the value of human life and individuality, life is not an enjoyable experience. Humans need room to grow and make mistakes. By punishing perfection, the authenticity and joy is removed from society. So again, this is represented by all of our claims, whether it's the 40 million quota or it's handicapping people due to their natural God-given talents. humans are always going to end up rising up and going against this controlling mentality. And Harrison Bergeron and he uses Harrison Bergeron and 2BRO2B, Von Gut does, to show how humans will rise against these things. Like, no matter how controlled and totalitarian a government is, there are still going to be people who rise up against that and who are not in support of that. So yeah, that is our project.